upgrade. That is scheduled for 2024 and costs $3.49 million. And then we also have a new Plymouth Gate upgrade, which is scheduled for 2024, which is $2.67 million. Both of these gates are in the Napa district, and both of these gates are the original gates from the 50s that were put in. So these gates are just undersized and need to be upgraded. For gate upgrades, there's really not an alternative analysis needed because they're just undersized, and we just need to replace them with larger size piping and components. So not much alternatives other than just upgrading the gate. And a lot of the gate upgrade needs, you know, you'll see high flows and you'll see pressure droop out of these gates that kind of show that they need a reinforcement. We'll also get, since we're always connected to Williams at a gate station, we'll also get notification from Williams that, you know, the gate's at capacity and, you know, we need to do an upgrade. Typically the upgrade will be an upgrade by both Intermountain Gas and Williams. So we'll upgrade our side and they'll upgrade their side. And we'll have like an agreed upon capacity that we designed to. So that's how those work.
Kathleen?
Sure.
Kevin again.
Yeah.
Didn't the Payette, or doesn't the Payette also include offtake from Willow Creek, the producers out there?
Is that an RNG project?
No, that's the natural gas production coming out of that area. I thought that there was an interconnection at the Payette Gate station. So something, if you don't know the answer to that we probably need to check and follow up on.
Yeah, I can follow up.
Because there were, as I understand it, out of the production, it fed two ways. And I believe there was a direct connection at the Payette City Gate as well as a connection to Williams Northwest.
I can interject here. There should be no production out there. There was a production facility at one time, but it didn't, and it had a small amount of flow, but currently there's no production out there that adds anything to Intermountain system or that would be included in Intermountain system.
All of them have been closed in or whatever.
Yeah, that one facility, you know, it closed in quite a while back from what I recall, and we used to account for it. But there's nothing on there currently that we have that's being accounted for on Intermountain system as far as production out there.
Okay, thank you. That answers the question.
Yes, no, and that's where I was leaning, but I wasn't certain. I was pretty certain, but yep. Nope, thanks for helping out. Any other questions on these two before we move on? All right, so now we'll get into our larger AOIs. So first up, we'll cover Canyon County AOI. This AOI requires reinforcement by 2023 to meet the IRP growth predictions. Its capacity limiter is the 6-inch, 8-inch, and 10-inch high pressure bottleneck on Ustick Road, which basically runs out of the Napa Gate, which is kind of the source for this AOI. Alternatives considered were discussed in detail in the 2021 IRP, and we selected Ustick Phase 3 in the 2021 IRP. Currently, Ustick Phase 3 has been designed and permitted and will begin construction this month. We had to delay the project a bit. There's a lot of city work going on. Ustick Phase 3 is actually one of my projects, and a lot of turning circles and a lot of road widening projects going on. So the cities have limited construction. So we had to wait. We're waiting for one project to wrap up, and then we'll be allowed to begin in mid-August. It's just a lot of construction, which you can see from all the growth. So it's good to get in there before everything gets upgraded, because they do have plans to widen Ustick to 4 lanes. So we've been accommodating that too in the design. And then basically I'll show you a map, but Ustick Phase 3 consists of about just a little over 4 miles of 12-inch high pressure. on Ustick from Star Road to Northside Boulevard. And then has a little bit of piping north on Star Road to connect us in to the Napa Gate. It's currently estimated to cost $12.8 million. And I have some exhibits and we'll look a little closer. So this is just an exhibit of the bottleneck. So right here's our Napa Gate. It's kind of our high pressure line. So we basically have high pressure that gets flows over to the west, into Caldwell and into Napa. So this is a current bottleneck. Just can't get flows and pressures out of the gate. So we lose a lot of pressure and then it compromises downstream pressures on our high pressure laterals. And, you know, just seeing a lot of growth in Napa and Caldwell. And then this is basically showing the Ustick project, and it's been built over several years. So Ustick Phase 3 is the third phase in the project. In 2019, we did Ustick Phase 1, which is in green. And then in 2021, we did the red stretch, which is Phase 2. And now moving forward with the Phase 3, which is the longest phase. And it's 4.1 miles of 12-inch high pressure. With this phase, we're also going to increase pressure, so it'll allow us to operate. Currently, the Napa Gate operates at 500 pounds, and then there's a regulator right here that near the retire reg that cuts to 330. We're going to be able to retire this reg and be able to push 500 all the way to the end of the Ustick phases. So once we get Phase 3 installed, we'll do an uprate, and then we have to install 4 regulator stations to cut pressures on some of the laterals off of Ustick. And that's what's needed to meet our growth predictions. That'll allow, will allow us to get the flows and capacities down the lateral we need to support growth. So yeah, so next up, I'm going to cover the State Street Lateral AOI.
Excuse me, Kathleen.
Sure.
Would you mind going back to the previous slide?
Okay.
And, so in looking at the Phase 3, is that a reconstruction of an existing main to a larger size?
Yep, it's a full, so on that stretch, there's some 8-inch and 10-inch, and we're going to go to 12-inch. That can operate at 500 pounds.
So just looking at the potential growth to the north of that, was there any consideration about maybe building a new line?
We did. So in the alternative analysis, we did have an option where we would run another lateral parallel north of the Napa Gate. And I'd have to recall, it wasn't as feasible. I think the cost, the issue is we had already done Phase 1 and Phase 2. So we did look at like an alternate lineup from the north, but you'd still have to run back south to get into Phase 2. So it actually made the route longer.
Okay.
Just the existing setup. But it was looked at when we did alternative analysis on Phase 3. That narrative would be in the 2021 IRP filing. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'll just pause before I move to the next one. I'll just see if we have questions. So going forward. Let me know if you have more questions. Just chime in. So yeah, now we'll go to State Street. So the State Street Lateral, this one requires reinforcement by 2025 and 2026 to meet the growth predictions. Its capacity limiter is a 12-inch high pressure bottleneck on State Street and a 4-inch high pressure bottleneck on Linder, and also requires a gate upgrade of the State Penn Gate or Boise 2. Alternatives considered for the 12-inch high pressure and 4-inch high pressure bottleneck were discussed in the 2021 IRP, and we selected State Street Phase 2 uprate. So just an uprate, no pipe. State Street Phase 2 is budgeted for 2024 and is estimated to cost $902,000. And then also with this, just because the gate's nearing capacity, we also need to do the state and gate upgrade. And it's budgeted for 2025 design and 2026 construction. And the gate upgrade's estimated to cost 2.73 million. And then with the gate upgrade, I think that is something that's new in this IRP, but with the gate upgrade, as I discussed earlier, there's no alternative analysis. We're kind of fixed at this gate location. So the gate upgrade with what we've built, no alternative analysis for that. Just the only option is just upgrading the physical capacity of the gate. So we'd replace our gate and then Williams would replace theirs for the agreed upon capacity needed for growth.
Kathleen, where is that gate located?
I'm going to show you right now. Here's the exhibit. So this is Boise 2. It's over in the, I guess, upper left corner. And right on State Street, and then it runs east into Boise. And then this is actually the bottleneck. And I'll show on the next screen, from the gate to this bottleneck was uprated a couple years back. So this is kind of like the next piece, to meet the next, the next growth need.
Excuse me, Kathleen, this is Rick Keller again, Idaho PUC. Could you maybe just give some indication of what it takes to uprate?
Yeah. So we would have to get, let me think about, I think the state has to, you guys would have to approve. So we'd have to do a formal like uprate plan, per subpart K. And we have to make sure that all the pipe and components and everything can handle the rating and has a valid pressure test, TBC records. And then we would uprate in the intervals. So we normally do 4 to 5 intervals. So it depends on how much you're uprating to. So I think this one's going to go, I believe it's 330 to 500. So there's guidance in the uprating. And then we would physically do a leak survey at each pressure increase to make sure no leaks, no problems.
Would it require any change to the pressure control, the pressure regulators?
Yeah, there's a couple regulator stations that'll get eliminated in the project, and then there's a couple we add.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, there's normally like a really detailed plan written. And actually this one, I believe we have to do a retest too, because I think they're going to have to take it out of service and cut it apart and then actually physically pressure test to validate the 500 pounds. And then once that's validated and back online, then they would take it from its existing MAOP up to the new MAOP with all the upgrade approvals. So.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. So that's what, and then this is what it's going to look like. So this actually, so they did this exact same scope. I believe it was 2021. They upgraded this blue stretch and they did take it out of service, test it, and then upgraded it. And then this is kind of the next part to meet the next growth metric is upgrading the red section, which is phase 2. So yeah, I think this is the last slide I had. Any questions on the State Street AOI? Okay. We'll move on. Next up, we got the Central Ada AOI. So this AOI needs reinforcement by 2023 to meet the IRP growth predictions. Its capacity limiter is 10-inch and 8-inch high pressure bottleneck on Meridian Road and Victory Road. This one was discussed in length in the 2021 IRP, and we selected the 12-inch South Boise Loop. The 12-inch South Boise Loop, actually another one of my projects, it's going to be in line in fall of this year. We're very close. And it's estimated to cost 17.9 million. And there's kind of 3 parts on the South Boise Loop. So we upgraded the CUNA Gate station, and then we installed 3.7 miles of 12-inch high pressure up Cloverdale is what it's called. It's called the 12-inch Cloverdale project. And then we're gonna also do a regulator station near Victory in Cloverdale. And that station's gonna cut from 500 to the 390. And I'll show you in just a sec. I have some exhibits, so it's tough to verbally explain. I think I'll go through it again with the pictures. But yeah, the CUNA gate's just about wrapped up, and the Cloverdale's online and in service. So we just have, we're waiting to install a hoist system to do maintenance at the CUNA gate. So we've been working with a consultant on that design, and then we're hoping to get that installed here in the next couple months, so they can do maintenance and get it in service. And then we're just waiting on a couple parts. We've had issues with parts and delays on the regulator station near Victory in Cloverdale. So just waiting to finish fabrication, and then that will be installed, and then this whole project would be in, online. So show you the map. So this is kind of the bottleneck. So this is the Meridian Gate, and there's 8-inch and 10-inch that run on Meridian Road and then Victory Road. And basically this gets pressures, our flow over to, east into Boise. And so that's currently the capacity limiter. And then this is actually Cloverdale. So to get pressures and flows off this system up off the Meridian Gate, we went through alternative analysis in 2021. If you're interested, I'd say you could find that narrative in the IRP. But we chose the option of upgrading the CUNA gate and running 12-inch and kind of putting a backfeed in, and running the 500-pound reinforcement with the CUNA gate upgrade. So that's what it looks like. And then the reg up here will cut and just backfeed the 390 and helps get pressure, helps reduce flow out of the Meridian Gate, and mitigates pressure loss, down the high pressure lateral. Any questions on the Central Ada AOI? Okay, continue. So next up, we got the Sun Valley Lateral AOI. So this AOI requires reinforcement by 2023 to meet the IRP growth predictions. We briefly discussed, but the capacity limiter on this lateral is the end of line pressure to catch them. And basically all the flows are just at the end of the line on this lateral. So up in the resort community, lot of growth, condos, large houses, lot of gas demand up on the north section that has compromised the lateral. Alternatives considered for this AOI were actually discussed back in the 2019 IRP, and we selected the Shoshone compressor station. The Shoshone compressor station is currently scheduled for commissioning this month. So they've been working hard getting that project installed. I know the compressor's on site. Most of the work on site's done for that. The building's installed. They are just waiting on a little bit of electrical and site work to wrap up, and then they're going to go through commissioning. So that'll be online by fall. And then it's estimated to cost $6.7 million right now. It's the current estimate. I got some exhibits too. So yeah, this is kind of the bottleneck, just end of line pressures, just so much flow, and pressure drop just down the lateral with all the flow at the end of the line. Currently we have the Jerome compressor station, kind of an older compressor station. It's been around for a little while. It's right here. And then on the next slide, we're putting the Shoshone compressor station just further north up the lateral. And it's near a milepost 32 near Shoshone. Any questions on the Shoshone compressor station?
Could you maybe, what type of compressors do you use? And are they natural gas fired or are they electrical powered?
For this one, I believe it's natural gas fired. And Zach
Are the-
so Zach knows more. Zach, do you know the term for that type of compressor?
So it is natural gas fired. There's two different types. There's like a reciprocating and a screw type, and I think this is the reciprocating engine type compressor for the Shoshone.
Yep, that sounds familiar.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Yeah, I don't think electrical is feasible here. It's too big. This is a really big compressor.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thanks, Zach. Okay, so now I'm actually going to kick it over to Zach, and he's going to cover the Idaho Falls lateral.
Yeah, thanks, Kathleen. Again, yeah, Zach Soward's engineer within the engineering services department. Be chatting about the Idaho Falls lateral. It was determined back in the 2021 IRP that in order to meet the growth predictions at that time, reinforcement would be needed by 2024. And really that capacity limiter is the end of line pressure up in St. Anthony. Just to give you an idea of the system, we'll show an exhibit on the next slide, but we get gas from Williams down in Pocatello, and the IFL, Idaho Falls Lateral, takes that gas and pressure all the way north and ends at St. Anthony. Really the limiter at this point through growth modeling is that pressure, the line pressure at St. Anthony right now. Alternatives were considered and discussed in the 2021 IRP, but ultimately that Blackfoot compressor station that Kathleen mentioned earlier, Rick, was selected as the appropriate option to support the additional growth and needs on the IFL. The compressor station itself has been ordered through the manufacturer and is planned to be installed in 2024. There's building, land, and design considerations that are still underway right now. But the compressor station has been ordered. Altogether, the project does have an estimated cost of $20 million, and that would include the additional piping in order to pipe up to that new compressor station. If you want to go to the next slide, Kathleen. This is that exhibit of the IFL as a whole, really with the gate station from Williams down in the south there in Pocatello, and these lines taking it all the way to the north in St. Anthony, experiencing a lot of growth immediately around Idaho Falls, but along the whole lateral as well. That growth really dropping pressures up in St. Anthony. We do currently have the Rexburg LNG facility that on Brian's slides you can see is currently meeting the demand as of this year, but by 2028 will not. So determining the need for additional reinforcement in that compressor station. Rick, going back to your point, we did evaluate this year as well to make sure that is still the appropriate option, and that would still be the appropriate option for the IFL here. The next slide shows some proposed areas that we had worked on previously. We have determined that middle star there, where the current IFL comes together, we have land acquisition in place for that site right now. Again, looking at capacities, this compressor station would bring on roughly 21% additional capacity up to that St. Anthony area and along the lateral itself. Again, with the construction plan for 2024. Any questions on the IFL?
I just have I guess a question with respect to the compressor station.
Yep.
What's the discharge pressure versus the suction pressure on the design, I guess?
Yeah, so it depends on what year of growth, I guess, but that line that it's connecting to is I'm pretty sure, if I'm remembering correctly, is 700-pound line. So we would be discharging just below that MAOP. And then the suction side, through modeling, I think we determined would be around that 500 pounds, dropping to that 500 pounds.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep. I will pass it back to Kathleen to summarize here.
Yeah, and that's a really big compressor station too. Do you remember the horsepower, Zach, on it? It's really big.
Yeah, it's extremely large. I would have to
Okay.
go look at it, but yeah.
I don't
We'll
want to
have
put
it.
you on the spot.
Yeah. We'll have it in the narrative, but yeah, it's an extremely large compressor station.
Good sized. But yeah, so I'm going to wrap up, and this is kind of the table. So everything we kind of talked about is kind of in this slide with timing. We haven't yet talked about capacity gain, so I'm going to go through that for each AOI. And I'll start with Ada County. So Ada County, we need a reinforcement in place by 2023, and that's going to be that 12-inch South Boise loop, which will be online this year. And it will bring the AOI capacity up to 870,000 therms per day. For State Street, for timing, it needs reinforcement by 2025, and that will be the State Street uprate, and it'll bring us up to 950, I guess, 100,000 therms a day. And then also by 2026, we need the State Penn Gate upgrade. And that, I'll just point out this one, it doesn't increase capacity because it's limited by the State Street uprate capacity. Just the physical gate needs the upgrade. And then for Canyon County AOI, it needs reinforcement by 2023, and that's the 12-inch Ustick Phase 3 project that's going to be starting construction very soon. And it's going to bring the capacity up to 1,390,000 therms per day. For the Sun Valley Lateral, it requires reinforcement by 2023, and that is the Shoshone compressor station that will be online this year. It's just about complete, and that will bring the capacity up to 247 and 500 therms per day. Lastly, Zach covered the Idaho Falls Lateral. And with our modeling and everything, we determined we need that in place by 2024, and that's the new Blackfoot compressor station, and it'll bring the AOI capacity up to 1,093,000 therms per day. So that's kind of the timing, and like Zach mentioned, we went through and every 2 years kind of with our IRP cycle, we did all the modeling, double checked. I mean, a couple of these did shift a little bit, maybe a year or two in need compared to the last IRP. But that's just the process to make sure that the timing's correct, and growth can change a little bit, so it's good to recheck. It also gives us time to just make sure our planning's online, and IGC's done a good job of planning with growth and being proactive to modeling and kind of scheduling these and then getting the projects done in time. And kind of with this process, it allows us enough time to plan, design, and construct these projects, in time to not have deficits. So important part of proactive planning. And then, like I said, so all these kind of with our, every 2-year cycle of the IRP, this will all be reassessed in 2025. So making sure everything's still needed, or maybe some more reinforcements, maybe may need to be added. And it'll go out through the longer time. So a lot of these, and kind of the overall story to this IRP, or my big takeaways, with all the growth that's hit Idaho, we've done so many big reinforcements over the last couple years, that now we're kind of in really good shape, through 2028, because once, the 12-inch Boise loop, Ustick's in place, and the 2 compressor stations, you can see we meet growth through this 5-year period with no other reinforcements. So, and that's another just shows the cyclical process of the IRP. But yeah, that kind of concludes what we had. I can open it up for questions. Any additional questions on what we've covered?
Kathleen, Kevin, and Zach, go back to the slide you had just a second ago.
Sure.
The summary. It would be nice to see that summary include the assumptions from the 2021 and the 2019 IRP, including the projected cost for each of the enhancements. Because as I'm recalling these going back to 2019, 2021, compressor costs were projected significantly lower than what you just talked about. And that may be a flaw in my memory, or it may be that prices have escalated, but a way to see how the world has evolved over the last few IRPs. And I don't know how you do that succinctly, but it's a request.
Yeah, we can maybe get you something over. I guess it might be information overload on this table. But yeah, I think I smiled when you said the cost increase. We have seen higher costs. I know, with inflation and everything going on in the world, we have seen higher cost on the compressors. So the cost I gave you were current costs. So we could go look back at, I know all the cost stuff's in the 2021 and 2019 IRPs. You could compare, see how they've changed over time. But I did give you current costs, which is like what our engineers currently predict. Another unknown, I know land came in significantly higher for the Idaho Falls lateral compressor because they had problems finding land. So just different things, evolve on each project.
Exactly. And I'm looking at that from kind of the regulator's point of view, that we're going to ask for that. So
Okay.
just to get out in front of it, and what you can include, you'll be a step ahead.
Yeah, maybe I'll have to think about it a little bit, but yeah, I guess we're gonna do the write-up, or when we do our IRP, maybe we could show
Right.
cost over time, or that's reasonable. So yeah, I'll make a note. Yeah,
Thank
try
you.
to get that table in there for you. I think it's also, so another thing with these compressors, I'll just make a note, is our engineers, we did, I gotta think, when I believe our the Jerome compressor is like almost 20 years old. I think, or well, no, it's at least 10 years old, because I think Russ worked on it. And Russ is almost 15 years with that Intermountain gas. Russ, Nisakawa, you guys are, so I'm sure you're familiar with Russ. But yeah, and it's just that cost. I think we underestimated, just with our experience and not doing compressors. Like, we do pipelines, so we're real familiar with bids and construction cost on those, but just a big asset like a compressor station, there's a little bit of a learning curve on those. And I think you've seen that a little bit in price. So
This is Rick Killer. So when you, as long as we're talking about compressors, so do you do a full life cycle analysis of the compressors and operating costs, maintenance costs, when you evaluate the type of compressors that you select for these projects?
yeah, we did. So part of our IRP submittal, I got to think of what it's called, but I worked with accounting. I'm slipping on the term, but we did include like maintenance and for all of our alternative analysis for Intermountain gas, we do that cost analysis, and it includes O&M through the years, and I believe depreciation. Brian, do you remember what that's called, Brian Robertson?
I think I don't know if you're talking about the net present value calculation
That's it. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a net present value calculation that I think you worked with the accounting on, and it included, I don't have it up in front of me, so I'm just going off memory. But it included a lot of different calculations, like Kathleen had mentioned.
And that's based off the alternatives, types of compressors, things like that. So when you do your net present value calculation or analysis, then you look at all the potential options to determine which would be least cost over its life.
Yeah, well, we did it for 20 years, and I think it was like a request from the IPUC. So we did it out 20 years, and it includes operations and maintenance. So you got operations on a pipeline, you know, versus a compressor station. And
Oh,
that,
in
Mhm.
comparison.
Yep, that's how they were compared. It was over a 20-year period, and yep, we threw all the O&M in for the two.
Okay. All
And
right.
that
Well,
would be, and yeah, we'll do that. I expect us to do that again. So in our IRP filing, we'll have that included, I believe. So I think that's just something we're going forward with.
okay. I've just wanted to make sure that the full life cycle analysis been, which I presume has been done. I just wanted to verify it in my own mind, but you know, just trying to, in selecting the least cost option, if, you know, a variety of things have been considered. The depreciable life of the asset, as well as the operating and maintenance characteristics of each of the selections, and how they all settle out to that net present value. So thank you.
When all the cost I shared in this one, they weren't net present value costs. They were just I guess our capital budgeted cost,
Right,
an
right.
estimate. So yeah, we would need to adjust those. And yeah, I know it includes like all the rebuilds, or I know on the compressors, we've had a lot of um operations experience. We operate another compressor that's over 20 years old in Cascade, and it had a bunch of failures this last year. So I know we've included like in that net present value cost, Daniel Osterhaus, our facility supervisor, included all of that in the 20-year cycle for the two Idaho compressors that'll be coming
Yeah.
online.
And I'm getting off topic, I know, but
Okay.
I have some experience with gas compressors in a previous life, and I know that at the time rotary screw compressors were a bit of the direction because of their efficiencies and ability to vary their capacity based off need and such like that. And so, but I'm not familiar enough to know if they have if they're sized large enough for a system like what you are designing to. So, but I appreciate the insight.
Of course. Okay, well, if there's no more questions, I got good news. I'm gonna hand to Brian, but it's gonna be break time. Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Yeah, we'll take a break. Let's do a 9-minute break and we'll come back at 9:25 or 10:25 Mountain Time. All right, everyone, it is 10:25 Mountain Time, so we will get going again, and we'll move on to the IRP optimization modeling and some of the draft results, and I'll kick it over to Jenny.
All right, thank you. I can't quite change the slide with my cursor, Brian.
Try and click first. There you go.
All right, Brian already explained this a little bit earlier, but this is kind of our game plan of how we go through and model for our IRP. And he took care of the load demand curves, and demand and supply and deliverability. So now I'm going to be talking about the optimization modeling aspect. So our IRP optimization modeling integrates all the main functional elements of the IGC operation: the gas demand load, which is how much and where gas is consumed. The load duration curve, or LDCs, are by each area of interest. The gas supply, which is where, how much, and what price the gas supplied to meet demand. Gas transport, which is how does the gas move from the supply to the demand area given the pipeline size and prices. DSM, which is demand side management, is the cost-effective energy efficiency used to reduce demand. Local gas distribution, which is the local lateral sizing, is explicitly modeled to meet demand and ensure reliability. The IRP model uses plexos, a linear optimization model, to determine the least cost manner to have loads served by supply, transport, demand side management, and laterals. And all results presented here are draft and subject to further IGC review. What is optimization? Our plexos modeling uses a standard mathematical technique called linear programming to optimize a least cost planning over all possible combinations, subject to constraints. The model knows the exact load price for every day of the planning period, and it's based on the analyst's input and therefore minimizes costs in a way that would not be possible in the real world. All of our inputs, everything from the price of gas every day to the load demand every day, needs to be estimated to put into this program. And therefore, there are limitations when it comes to what we can take from the model. It's really helpful, but it's not perfect information. It's not a perfect picture of what the future is going to be. It's just kind of a roadmap to see where we're going and what we need to do. And this program selects from a mix of resources over the entire planning horizon to meet the forecasted loads. Some of the model elements are the demand forecast by each area of interest, our traditional supply resources, which is our existing and potential gas supplies by basin, our storage resources, and our transportation capacity resources. We also have our price forecast, and then we also modeled the non-traditional supply, which is new distribution capacity, renewable natural gas, demand side management, etc. Next, you can see a map of our pipelines. You can see through Idaho runs the Northwest Pipeline, and our supply comes from Sumas and ACO up in Canada and Opal in Wyoming. This is a snapshot of our model structure and how we have it set up in plexos. It's a little bit convoluted, so I'm going to go into each aspect to explain it a little bit more. First thing is transport. You can see those little black rectangles. These contracts are the means of how Intermountain gets the gas from the supplier to our end user. Each transportation contract has an MDQ, reservation charge, flow charge, and a fuel loss percentage. MDQ, or maximum deliverable quantity, is the amount of gas Intermountain can move on the pipeline in a single day. A D1 rate, or a flow charge, is like your fixed cost. It's the rate to have the ability to move a certain amount of capacity on the pipeline. The transportation rate is like your variable cost, and it's the rate per decatherm that you pay to physically move the molecules of gas along the pipeline. The fuel loss percentage is the statutory percent of gas based on the tariff from the pipeline that is lost and unaccounted for from the point where the gas was purchased and then onto our city gates. Next is storage, which are these cyan cylindrical figures. Intermountain has storage at 5 locations: Jackson Prairie, Plymouth, Clay Basin, Nampa, and Rexburg. All the storage that needs to be cycled, is put in at their targets for 35% by the end of June, 80% by the end of August, and 100% by the end of September. Intermountain can withdraw approximately 30,000 decatherms a day from JP, 155,000 decatherms per day from Plymouth, and 70,000 decatherms a day from Clay Basin, for a total of about 256,000 decatherms a day of off-system storage. Intermountain also has Nampa and Rexburg on-system storage, which are approximately, can withdraw 60,000 decatherms a day from Nampa and 5,500 from Rexburg, for a total of about 65,500. Next is supply, which we get from 3 markets: ACO, Sumas, and Opal. Each market, we can purchase gas at different locations along the pipeline. It doesn't just need to be from the original basin. From each year, Intermountain uses base, winter, base summer, or base, winter base, summer day gas, winter day gas, and peak incremental supplies as inputs. Over the planning horizon, the contracts are renewed in our plexos modeling system in November and April. Here you can see the dark gray line represents our demand, including our peak day. The dotted blue line at the bottom represents the minimum amount of gas we're going to need throughout the year. And so anything above this line, you see the green hashed line along our demand. And that's summer day gas that we purchased. That's going to be anything over the amount of our base supply. For our winter months, which are November, from the beginning of November through the end of March, we have winter-based supply, which is the minimum amount we estimate we're going to need for the winter months. And then anything over that is supplemented by winter day gas, which is this yellow dotted line going along the demand curve. And then at the very top, we have peak supply, which comes from our storage and serves in our needle peaking resources. Next is demand area. Demand is forecasted at our 5 areas of interest: Canyon County, Idaho Falls, Sun Valley, Central Ada, north of State Street, and then an all-encompassing all other group. Demand is determined by the load demand curves, and each area of interest has demand side management, which decrements demand at the avoided cost price. Oh, shoot. Brian, can you pull that back up? I'm not sure what happened.
Yeah, there, can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, and then here you see the same picture we're looking at earlier, and hopefully we have a little bit of a better understanding of how our model works. I think that's it for my part. I will hand it back
Jennifer?
over. Yes.
Hi, this is Kevin. How long have you been using plexos?
I believe we started using it last winter. Brian knows more exactly when they started using it.
Yeah, so Sendout was our old system that we used for our upstream optimization modeling. And the owners of Sendout, they had not been updating the model, and it was no longer going to be supported with through Windows starting in October of this year. So we looked at moving to another option. Plexos is very similar to Sendout. It actually has a few more capabilities than Sendout. And so it essentially works exactly the same as Sendout does. And Jenny was right. We contracted them beginning of 2022 is when we started using plexos.
Thank you.
Yep. And just for clarification, the pictures that you see here, these are still pictures from Sendout, mainly because Sendout has currently has a better way to view the system when you set it up like this. Or the plexos model, it has a way to do something similar, but it doesn't display the names as well. So that's something that we're going to be working with Plexos to see if they can update the system. They also offer a better help service. You can get in contact with them a lot easier, and they're open and willing to update their model based on our needs. All right, thanks, Jenny. I will take over
excuse
for
me, this
the.
is-
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt.
No
So
problem.
what's your time intervals associated with your model then? Is it daily then? I was just looking at some of your load curves and stuff, so it's a daily time interval?
Yes, it is daily. Yep.
Okay. And do you use this Plexos, for more than just your forecast models? Do you use it for, what I've heard, Plexos is a very, comprehensive, capable, software, forecast software. And do you use it for actual dispatch or model, real-time, procurement of gas or things like that?
We do not. So we've only used Plexos for planning purposes so far.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yep. There are no other questions. I'll move on to some of the draft results. So like Jenny had explained, Plexos, we incorporate all of our supply, all of our transportation, all of our demand inputs, DSM, all the different resources that we have, and we put it into Plexos and we run it and we say optimize it at the least cost plan. And so these results here, these are pre any incremental transport, any incremental distribution system plans. So you could see, and this gives an annual outlook. What I provided in the load demand curves, that was the first and last year. So this one provides each annual look. So you could see that we have a shortfall in 2023. We do pick up the 21,000. This is pre GTN Express. We do pick up the 21,000 in 2024, which helps solve some of that shortfall. But then we continue to see a slight shortfall in terms of transport throughout the planning horizon. Taking a look at distribution system plans, again, you can see we are reaching our max capacity in this first year. Oops, sorry. And then in 3 of them, we exceed it in 2024. And then at the end of the planning horizon, we do exceed all 5 locations. Therefore, that's the reason for the need of the distribution system plans. Just as a reminder of what the shortfall solves are. As of right now, we're looking at for Ada County, Bend 12-inch Boise Loop, State Street with the State Street uprate and the State Penn Gate upgrade. And then the compressor station, or sorry, the Ustick Phase 3 at Canyon County, the compressor station for the Sun Valley Lateral. And in Idaho Falls, we have the compressor station there as well.
So
And then-
this is, sorry to interrupt. So this is Rick Keller again. So with respect to your model, you actually introduce your details of your distribution system into the model. And so from there, based off your load, you're actually looking specifically into your distribution system to see where there's constraints and whether or not the system's capable of providing that capacity to meet your the load. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And I can going back to this slide, I can walk through it a little bit. So here you'll see I don't know if you guys can see my cursor, but
Yes, we can.
sorry. This here on this side, this is all the core. This is what we have to plan for on the upstream side. And so you'll see all other Canyon County, Idaho Falls, Sun Valley, Central Ada, State Street. It all connects to this Zone 24 or IGC node, whatever you want to call the node. But this is the node that we pull all of our transport, all of our storage, TF2 transport. We pull it here, and then we distribute it to the different gates. So this is our firm upstream capacity that we have to plan for. Our non-core or our T4 customers that we don't plan for their capacity. So here we just give them as much capacity as they need. It's free transport in terms of our modeling because we don't want to capture those costs. It's also free gas for the non-core because we don't want to capture those costs. Those are costs that they have to pay for. We just want to have an understanding of what their non-core demand is. And now this all other non-core and this all other, these are tethered together in the model. You'll see here that they look like they're separate, but they're actually tethered together in the model under what we call a constraint. So let's say for Idaho Falls, I don't remember what the exact number was, 90,400. It looks like core peak day is 66,000 and this is 20,000. So here we're looking at 66,000 flowing on Idaho Falls to the core side, 20,000 flowing here. So we're at 86,000. The max capacity that can flow on these two contracts at the same time is 90,000. So yeah, we do include the distribution system modeling in our upstream modeling planning software as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So on the upstream transportation, to solve any of the shortfalls, we're looking at contract renewals, first and foremost. GTN Express, after we had done the capacity segmentation, looking at getting more GTN capacity. There's a big opportunity of getting the cheaper eco gas. So looking at more GTN is a big benefit to the Intermountain customers. We're also looking at any alternative transportation uptake. So if there's, once we gather the known capacity upgrades that we can go out and get, the 21,000, the GTN Express 79,000. There's still a little bit of alternative transportation uptake we need in that final year of the optimization. I think it was about 15,000 decatherms. So we'll be looking at some Sumis or some more GTN if possible, as well as the Rockies. We also looked at renewable natural gas. We put that into the upstream optimization model. We put it as an on-system resource because we would be looking at the actual gas molecules rather than the attributes itself. But renewable natural gas does present a little bit of an issue with the higher costs, so it was not selected, but it was modeled. Sorry about that. And then if there's any other upstream optimization models that anyone wants us to model, please let us know and we can definitely take a look at that. So now this includes the different upstream optimization and distribution system enhancements. So you can see once we enhance our deliverability to the IGC system, the first year, this includes the GTN Express. It gets us down to 87,000. In 2024, it goes down a little bit more because we're adding that 21,000. And then we keep going. We're covered quite well. We're up to 88%, 95%, 97%. And then in that final year, we're at 99%. So we'll be looking at some more upstream transportation options once we get to that final year of the planning horizon. And then similarly on the distribution side, you can see I've plugged in the capacity enhancements when they're happening based on that slide, that summary slide that Kathleen had presented. So once they go in, whichever year they were applied to, I put them in, and you can see that we don't have anything exceeding the max capacity in terms of our design peak day events. Are there any questions there? Okay. All right, if there are no questions, I'll move on to a little bit of a draft results in terms of our modeling. So most of the gas, as you've seen, we've contracted with a lot of GTN, a lot of stand filled to IGC through ACO. So most of the supply is going to come from ACO. And then we have a little bit of supply coming from the Sumis area as well as the Rockies area. And then we also include, so the yellow is the upstream supply basins. The green is our demand side management that we have planned throughout the year. And then we also include storage. And that's, you can see most of the storage is utilized in that January timeframe, which is when we have the design
Brian?
weather. Yes.
What is the unit of measure? Is this decatherms?
This is decatherms, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. And this is a monthly total. And then again, in the final year, you can see we still are taking a lot of ACO, but we've also added some incremental Sumis and Rockies to cover the remaining, any remaining shortfalls that we're seeing. As you can see, DSM is treated as cumulative. So over time, it's going to, once we implement a program in year one, that program's going to stay there in year 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Similarly, year 2, those programs are going to stay there for throughout the planning horizon. So it does become a bigger number. As you can see, we're at 3,000 in the all other, Central Ada, State Street, and those grow up to about 16, 14, and 14. So you can see how those do grow quite a bit in terms of demand side management savings. And then storage, again, utilized mainly in the very cold months. This is one of the areas where plexos may have more information than like perfect knowledge. It knows that there's going to be a peak in January, so it may be a little more conservative in the winter months. That's something that we have to keep in mind while we are actually operating compared to versus planning. And then I have some peak day supply results. So you can see here, I think these years are off a little bit. Yeah, this should be 2023 and this should be 2028. But you can see that most of the gas is supplied through ACO. Probably a little under half is supplied through ACO. There's a little bit of SUMIS starting in 2025, 2026 timeframe. And then we also have a little bit of Rockies coming on peak day. And this is just peak day. And then a lot of storage. So it's going to utilize all the storage on a peak day event. So just to summarize, we employ the utility standard practice. A lot of utilities are now using plexos. It is the utility standard practice optimization system now in the Pacific Northwest. We model all types of things, including DSM and storage, RNG. Our model handles storage withdrawal and injections across the season. It provides a check on need for lateral expansion. So it definitely stress tests our model and says, hey, we need a lateral expansion here. Similarly, it provides a check on the transport side and supply capacity. It'll tell us if we need more storage. It'll let us know if we need more transportation, where we could get that transportation from. We let it size any incremental transportation, and we give it several options of where it can pick up transportation, and then it'll do a least cost, least risk planning optimization on it, and it'll tell us which one it is seeing as the cheapest option. Then we'll go and have conversations with the different players, the different pipelines, see what's actually available in that time frame, what the costs are. If the costs change from what our modeling assumptions are, we'll have to go back and redo that and rerun the optimization model. Are there any questions? I think we have come to the end. Are there any questions for what I just presented? Okay. Are there any questions from an earlier presentation that may have come up? And I'm not seeing any hands. I'm not seeing anyone come off mute. So I'm just going to remind everyone, if you do have feedback, you can reach out to this email address. Please feel free to send any comments, any feedbacks. If you have a suggestion, please let us know. We're always open to updating our models if you think there's something that we're missing. If you can provide feedback within 10 days, that would be our preference. We're going to start moving into putting together the narrative over the next couple of months. We do plan on filing a draft, or sending out a draft rather. It probably won't be filed. And then we'll ask for any comments, any edits. If there's something that you wanted to see in the IRP narrative that wasn't there, if you could just provide us a comment on that and say, hey, I'd like to see this analysis, or could you add a little more narrative or explanation around this? That's very appreciated. This is a company plan, but we appreciate all the feedback we can get from internal and external stakeholders. Once we, sorry, I have the wrong schedule in front of me. There we go. So the draft will be circulated sometime around the end of September. And we'll ask if there are any comments on the draft IRP to be returned at the end of October. And then once we receive the draft comments, we will update the IRP as needed, and we'll get the IRP filed at the end of November. All right, are there any questions about the remaining timeline? All right, I'm not seeing any questions, so thanks everyone for joining. I appreciate the conversations, the questions we got today, and look forward to working with everyone the rest of the IRP process.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, bye everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.